I just want to congratulate Sam Greenlee as the writer, cast, and also the crew. I think that this is a major film. It's an amazing film, and I enjoyed it as someone who actually sat down and watched it for the first time. So thank you so much for this. This is a gift. I have two quick questions, and they're based upon production. In terms of managing the crowd of 300 and the riot, how did you stop that from becoming an actual riot? And then also, what was the length of the shoot from beginning to end?
It did become an actual riot. Okay. We had to stop it. That's what makes it so authentic. All right?
That
Most of
lady
the
with the
people in there-
purse, didn't she really think it was a riot?
Yeah, she did.
Yeah.
Most of the people in there were residents of the community, all right? And they had a legitimate shot at the cops who patrolled the community. And them cops were fighting for their lives. You know, look at it sometime, you know. And that one lady who had a big bag was beating the cops. She wasn't an actress. Okay. A footnote to what David just said. He called me and told me one day he was going to become a cop. And he was very apologetic for that. I think he assumed I was going to put him down for that. My response was, hey, man, nobody needs a good cop more than we do. You just be a good cop. And he was.
You know, I've always appreciated David and his candidness. I was in LA and had an opportunity to have lunch with Keith Black. Keith Black is one of the leading or the leading brain surgeon in the world. He was on the cover of Time magazine a little bit before we met. And we were having lunch, and he asked me, had I seen Spook to Sit by the Door, or had I read the book? Because he saw himself operating in that world as a spook. And a lot of us do. David had the opportunity to be clear and concise about who he was. But a lot of us, in whatever career we choose to be, are not necessarily honest about what we believe, what we are, and what we feel. Because we are obligated to, we think, survive. And so one of the tragedies of our lives is that most of us would rather be accepted than to be successful. And it's a tragic, it's a very, very tragic thing.
Is there another question up here?
Oh,
Length of the
length of the
shoot, that's
shoot.
right.
Well, I don't think that we could really quantify it because he stole shots in Chicago, and I don't know how long that went on, as long as we could get away from it, with it. Then we were in Detroit, in Gary for at least 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, about 4 weeks, and then we were in California for 2 weeks in LA. And I remember flying out, Sam, they flew me out to California. I shouldn't probably tell this, but I'm telling anyway. So I get to California, and I'm coming in from the airport, and they say, well, Al Cook was picked up and he was in jail. So they weren't sure whether or not I was going to actually shoot with him the scene on the street the following day. And then I get to the hotel, and all of the Cobras were there, basically in one room, looking at a box of collard greens, trying to figure out, was that going to be the last meal for the day, for the month. So we were there for a while.
How the pendulum in the entertainment industry has swung, particularly in black entertainment and black movie making, from male to female. And that includes even people like Tyler Perry doing movies that primarily appeal to female audiences. And a lot of things, big rising of people like Oprah Winfrey and stuff like that, when, earlier, back in your time, Sam, things were very much more swung towards the male side of things.
Yeah, there are a lot of really interesting black female filmmakers who have been working. I don't know if you all know about the film Middle of Nowhere. It's a beautiful film by Ava DuVernay. So yeah, there's a lot that we could say about the sort of the gender politics of making films and the characters as well in films from the 70s to now. A lot of the so-called blaxploitation films were oriented to younger audiences and to male audiences. And I think that that has opened up dramatically, and Tyler Perry certainly has, we could say, exploited the loyalty of black women audiences in the way that he's built his empire. So that's certainly true.
Look, it's not a matter of color. It's that females decide what movies their dates are going to. And that's why they have so many female-oriented movies, not just black, but also white. And that's all right with me, you know. If we go out and I don't like the movie, I can go to sleep. But that's where it is. They discovered that the people who decide on what movies to see are females, black and white.
I think we're going to take...
I would probably approach it, my answer to it slightly differently, because I think the total roles in society have changed. Our families have shifted. The responsibilities of men has changed. The workforce in general has changed. And so I think the film follows everything else in society. And so the more women that are working in industry in general, the more they take up the positions that typically have been taken up by men, which was discriminatory, but it was just the reality of the way that it was. And now that especially in terms of, if you talk about black men, and the dissipation of our involvement in almost everything in this country, it's impacted the same way.
What would it mean to have a black thinking woman as an equal in that film? What would she do? How would she behave? How would she be a part of Black Revolt in that film?
Before you answer that question, I totally empathize with what you're saying because, you know, I take issue with the portrayal of every black man with a tie as some kind of sellout because I wear ties every day. Go ahead, Sam.
Look, the film was obviously a message to black males, okay? I didn't intend to minimize black females, but all y'all got to do is wait. I got something for you. I have written a modern black play and film called Lisa Trotter, which is an adaptation of the ancient Greek play Lysistrata. And in this play, Lysistrata organizes the women in the community, and they ain't giving up nothing until the dope dealing and gang banging stops. So all the leading roles are female. So just wait. I think you might like it.
One quick comment. Masekwa Myers is sitting back there. And I'm mentioning her name because she actually was supposed to be in the film as the female portions to the Cobras. She was actually Pretty Willie's girlfriend. And then there were 3 other females that I don't remember what their names were, but those scenes never got into the movie. And also, when I was talking with Sam the other day, he talked about his disappointment in the scene where Joy was explained in terms of her relationship. So I understand your point in terms of the challenge that we all have with how we portray anything in any particular film. But there are 2 suggestions that I have to people in general. One, we have to really stand up and find out what films are being made, because there are a number of independent films that are out there that we don't support. The only reason that people went to see Django was because of how much publicity it got, bad and good, but it filled the house. And so we have to put the energy behind the films that are being done by these independent filmmakers, and there's some great ones. Middle of Nowhere is an example of that we still have not gotten out behind. And maybe we need to do what Ron Milner did back in the 70s and put up on the marquee for black people only. Because when he did that for the play he did downtown, there were lines all the way around the block. So we have to stand up. You know, we have to be committed to the success of our industry. And it starts with us, with every one person calling for people and getting them behind it. It doesn't take a whole movement. It takes a small group. So call your friends and say, I know about this film, and I'm going to go out and I'm going to support it. Go to Black Harvest Film Festival. Go to the Black Cinema that's at ICE Theaters every month. How many of you go? Raise your hands. All right, those of you that don't should be ashamed of yourself, so don't be critical unless you go.
A footnote to what you just said, I'd like to suggest the DuSable Museum does a weekly series of independent black films. Think about that.
I would say that I refuse to do it unless I get enough folks in this room committed to filling the house. Because we're not doing it on our own. We do enough programs on a continuous basis. And so if we get a boatload of folks that get up and say, I'm committed to independent film and I'm going to commit to selling 20 seats, or I'm going to commit to selling half the house, then yeah, we'll do it every week. But we're not doing it on our own. So if black folks are ready to really do some serious work, then let's organize it. Let's get together and do it. And stop expecting everybody else to. There are enough of us to be able to stand up and make some of this stuff happen. There was a point in our history, and I'm sorry, I don't want to belabor this, so I'm going to do this really quick. There's some point in our history, in the not too distant past, that we began to see ourselves outside of ourselves. We began to say, black folks will not do something. Black folks will not support. Black folks will not buy. Black people think that this is the only kind of thing that we will do. That meant that we believe that we are not black, so we have to see these other folks as something else. So we say, black people want to see Tyler Perry. Are we crazy? Have we lost our black mental self? What is it that allows us not to see ourselves as ourselves? Because that's what we need to do. We need to stop saying what we won't do, because we are we. So if you want us to do that, then we need to organize having that happen. I'm through.
On behalf of everyone at the DuSable Museum of African American History, I want to thank you all for coming out today. Let's give a round of applause to our panel: Jacqueline Stewart, David Lemieux, Pimon Rami, and of course, the great Sam Greenlee, everybody.